All right, so for this video, we're going to work on adding and subtracting fractions and mixed numbers. And they're really easy. The main thing you have to remember is that you can't add or subtract fractions or mixed numbers without a common denominator, okay? So to add or subtract fractions and mixed numbers, you must have a common denominator. That's that number in the bottom. It's got to be the same. And we will not be changing any mixed numbers to improper fractions. We're not going to do that. We'll do that on multiplication or division, but for addition and subtraction, we're going to leave the mixed numbers alone. All right, so again, I said the denominator, or your number in your bottom, that's your denominator, has to be the same. So if you look, that's an 8 and that's an 8. They're the same. So you have 7 eighths minus 3 eighths. Well, you can do that. If you have 7 eighths and you want to take away 3 eighths, you end up with only 4 eighths. Basically, you just take your two top numbers and subtract and keep the same bottom number. Keep the denominator if it is the same for both, okay? That's an 8 and that's an 8, so keep it. Now, you can simplify. 4 eighths simplifies to 1/2. But right now, I'm not concerned about whether or not you can simplify. I just need to know you can add or subtract. All right. My bottom numbers are the same. I have 4 ninths plus 1 ninth. I need the highlighter. So that's a 9 and that's a 9. As long as your bottom numbers or your denominators are the same, you can go ahead and just add or subtract your two top numbers. So if I look at the top numbers, it's 4 plus 1, which is 5. And since these are the same, keep it. Okay? That's it. That's all you do. If it's the same, it's really easy. All right. Look at number 3. What I'm going to do is look and see if my denominators are the same first. So that's a 5. Come on. That's a 5. It's not allowing me to do it, guys. Hold on. Okay, I won't be able to do it with that. All right, so I see that that's a 5 and that's a 5. My denominators are the same. So all I do is take my numerators. I have 4 subtract 2. Well, 4 minus 2 is 2. And again, if your denominators are the same, then you just keep it. So I'm going to keep the 5. And these are called whole numbers. The big numbers are called whole numbers. So after you subtract the fractional part, the one with the little bar in between, 4/5 minus 2/5, and get 2/5, you subtract 7 minus 3. Well, 7 minus 3 is 4, and you're done. That's all you do. So you subtract your fraction parts, and then you subtract your whole number parts. Make sure you're able to subtract your fraction parts first, because you're going to learn you should have already learned in elementary school that sometimes you might have to borrow. But we're going to do more of that when we get to adding and subtracting sign fractions. Right now, I'm not going to have any borrowing with mixed numbers, all right? But make sure you subtract the fraction parts first and then the whole number part second. Okay, check to make sure they have the same denominator. So we're going to look at number 4. Number 4, this denominator is 15 and that denominator is 15. So I now get to keep that denominator. So I just subtract 11 minus 9 and I get 2. So I've subtracted the fractional pieces. 11 fifteenths minus 9 fifteenths is 2 fifteenths. Now all I have to do is subtract my whole numbers. So if I subtract my whole numbers are 12 and 8. 12 minus 8 is 4. So 12 and 11 fifteenths minus 8 and 9 fifteenths is just 4 and 2 fifteenths. It's just that simple. Again, you have to keep in mind once you get the denominators to be the same, you keep the denominator. You don't say 8 minus 8 or 9 plus 9 or 5 minus 5. Don't do that. Once you get the denominators to be the same, keep the denominators. You can only add or subtract the two numerators, which are your top numbers, and the whole numbers if you have mixed numbers, okay? Okay, 5 and 6 are different, and you should be able to see that this is a 12 and that's an 8. Always focus on your denominators first. They're not the same, so that's not as easy as 1 through 4. So what you have to do is get them to be the same. So we're going to have to rename fractions. Okay, I'm going to show you how to rename fractions if your denominators are not the same. We're going to rename them so that the denominators are the same, okay? So all you do is take your denominators. You're going to take 12 and 8. And you're going to list make what I call a T-chart. And I call it a T-chart because it looks like a T. Okay? Except you have this bar up here at the top instead of in the middle. So you're going to put your denominators in the very above that bar. And you're just going to start skip counting by 12. So if you got your multiplication chart, it's 12, and then it's 24, and then 36, and 48, and then 60. And you can keep going if you want to, but I'm going to go over here to the 8s. If you skip count by 8, you should see 8, 16, 24. I'm going to stop. I want you to stop when you see something common, because that will be your common denominator. Okay? So what I want to do, instead of having this as a 12 and this as an 8, I want to have them both as a 24. Well, it's very simple to do. All you do is you go back and say, well, 12 times what give me a 24? Well, 12 times 2. That little dot stands for times, guys. You can use the X or you can use a little dot for multiplication, okay? I like to use the dot. Now, if you don't know 12 times 2 gives you 24, that's okay. Just go over here and count. How many 12s did it take to make 24? 1, 2. So you multiply your denominator by 2. But with fractions, whatever you do to one part, you do to the other part. Whatever you do to your numerator, you do to the denominator. Okay, so I'm going to multiply that by 2. That's how we rename it. So now I get to multiply because that little dot means times. 5 times 2. Well, 5 times 2 is 10. And 12 times 2 was 24. So 10 24s, guys, is really the same as 5 12s. It's a larger version of 5 12s. But if I take 10 24s and simplify, it goes back to 5 12s, okay? Same thing. Like somebody's name may be Kiana, but they want me to call them Zoe. Same thing. The fraction's name is 5 12s, but I can call it 10 24s, but they're the same, all right? All right, so here, I need to change the 8 to a 24. Well, what do I multiply 8 by to get 24? If you don't know it's 3, then you come over here and you count. How many groups of 8 did it take to make 24? 1, 2, 3. So you multiply both numerator and denominator by 3. You got to remember, when you're renaming fractions to make a common denominator, whatever you do to the bottom, your denominator, you also do to the top, which is your numerator. So put your minus back in the middle because you're subtracting. Let me write this in a different color. Bring that minus down. And 1 times 3 is 3, and 8 times 3 was 24. Now these denominators are the same. That's 24 and that's 24. So once you get them the same, you're good to go. You just subtract your numerators. 10 minus 3 is 7. And once you get the same denominator, you just keep it and you're done. So if they're not the same, you got to do a T-chart to get them to be the same, okay? So for instance, like 8 is not the same as 6. So I just draw my T-chart. And I put 8 and 6 above the line. And I just go to my multiplication chart and start listing my 8s. 8, 16, 24, 32. And then I go to my 6s. You can list more of those if you want to. But I'm going to my 6s and list my multiples of 6, 6, or skip count by 6. And then 12, nothing common yet. 18, nothing common yet. 24, there we go. Okay, there's a 24. That's common in both of them. So I'm going to change both of these to a 24 on the bottom. My common denominator is going to be a 24. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to multiply this 8 by something. What do I multiply the 8 by? Well, 8 times 3 is 24. But if you don't know that, come over here and count. 1, 2, 3. It took 3 of those 8s to make 24. So if you multiply your 8 by 24, you got to multiply the top by, if you multiply your 8 by 3, which is your bottom, you got to multiply your top by 3, okay? Okay, so 3 times 3 is 9, and 8 times 3 is 24. Put your plus sign back. Then I got to fix this 6. What am I going to multiply this 6 by to get a 24? Well, if you don't know that 6 times 4 is 24, come over here and count. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 groups of 6 make 24. But if you multiply the bottom, the 6 by 24, you must multiply the top of it by, if you multiply the 6 by 4, you must also multiply the top, which is your numerator, by 4. Well, 1 times 4 is 4, and 6 times 4 is 24. So now, since you have 24 on the bottom for both of them, you can go ahead and add. You can say that 9 plus 4 is 13 and keep the 24. So that's your answer. You're done. So again, if they're the same, you can skip all of this. Like if your denominator is the same, you don't have to do any of that. You just add or subtract the top depending on what it tells you to do. If it says add the top. If it says subtract the top numbers. But it's only that easy if the bottom numbers or your denominators are the same. And then if they're not, you just got to remember to do the T-chart and rename them so that they are the same, okay? Okay, let's look at this mixed number. Okay, look at your bottom numbers, see if they're the same. That's an 8 and that's a 4. Not the same, so I'm going to do a T-chart. There's my T. Put the 8 on top of it and the 4 on top of that line right here. And I'm just going to go to my multiplication chart and list some multiples of 8. And then I'm going to list some multiples of 4. 4, 8, but I'm going to stop because I see an 8. It's the common one. But if you notice, look at this. This bottom number is already an 8. So I write it back down because I already have what I need. Minus, okay, this one isn't an 8. This one is a 4. So what I do now is I say, well, what do I multiply 4 by to get an 8? If you don't know you multiply 4 by 2 to get an 8, no problem. Come up here and count. How many 4s did it take to make 8? 1, 2. So you multiply the bottom by 2 and the top part of that fraction by 2. Now do not multiply that 1 by 2. You're only going to multiply the fraction part by 2, which is the 1 and the 4, the numerator and the denominator. Okay, you're going to keep that 1, so bring that 1 down. And then 1 times 2 is 2, and 4 times 2 is 8. So now you can subtract because I got an 8 on the bottom for each one of them. So what is 5 minus 2? Well, 5 minus 2 is 3, and we keep the 8, remember? When they're the same, you just keep the bottom number. And then you just say, subtract your big numbers. What you call whole numbers, guys. 5 minus 3 is 2. And that's all you do. You're done. All right. You're going to try 8 on your own, okay? Try 8 on your own. That's 9 and 7/12 plus 2 and 1/3. It's a little blurry. All right, this is what you should have. You should have noticed that 12 and 3 are not the same, so you should have drawn a T-chart. Put your 12 on the top and your 3. Go to your multiplication chart and list some multiples of 12. So skip counting by 12 is 12, 24, 36, 48, and so forth. Okay, now I'm going to list some by 3. 3, 6, 9, nothing coming yet. 12, oh, I can stop because here's a 12 and there's a 12. If you notice, this is already over 12, so you just keep it. Now, if it wasn't, you would fix it. Bring down your plus. So this doesn't have a 12. So I say, well, what do I multiply 3 by to get a 12? If you don't know 3 times 4, come over here on your 3s and count. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you multiply the bottom of 3 by 4, you got to multiply your 1 by 4. But don't multiply the 2 by 4. You just bring that down. So 1 times 4 is 4, and 3 times 4 is 12. Now you can take these two top numbers and add them. 7 plus 4 is 11. Keep the 12. Remember, once you get the same bottom number, you keep it. And 9 plus 2, your whole numbers. 9 plus 2 is 11. So it's 11 and 11/12, and you're done. That's all you do. That's it for adding and subtracting fractions and mixed numbers, guys. You should have a practice for adding and subtracting mixed numbers.